Howdy y'all, Los here. This is a Brazilian rain tree. We've done a lot of work to it in the past. You've seen it many times. It's one of the first trees we ever worked on the channel. At the moment, it needs a pruning, needs some work, but it got me thinking about the air layer that we did to it not too long ago. Boy, that needs some work too. So I thought today would be a great day to go ahead and work on our Brazilian rain trees. Let's do it. I've got a lot of yellowing leaves, and you'll find them all towards the base of these longer shoots. Now my working theory is, of course, all the energy is being brought out to the top here. A lot of energy up there, and it's rejecting, or I wouldn't say reject, I'd say it's just there's less power, less strength down here. And what it's basically doing, it's getting rid of those leaves and it's going to start hardening it, thickening it up, and then it becomes a little branch. As you see, this little branch here was just a little whip like this, and then it's thickened up. It's lost all its bottom leaves and it just doesn't need them anymore because it's focusing on growth up here. What we really need to do today is start thinking about the future of this tree. I've been sort of using the top of this tree as cutting stock, essentially. So all the Brazilian rain trees I have, and I have quite a lot of them, they've all come from this tree alone, which is pretty cool to get so many trees out of one tree. And we've been doing that because it's kind of too long here, and my plan was always to bring it down. And I think today is a good day to go ahead and start our new air layer right along this trunk here, which eventually we're going to get rid of that, and this is going to be our new leader. And therefore, shortening up that distance, and hopefully we can get some more of a structure, maybe about like this. For the size of the trunk that it is, we need to have it to be maybe this tall at the most. Brazilian rain trees can get huge, but I've got a lot of other Brazilian rain trees I can show you that I'm just letting grow in big giant pots. Matter of fact, let me show you one of them right now. We're in the greenhouse, and this is another cutting. I don't remember when I took it, but whenever I do the pruning, I just shove all the cuttings into some soil. Most of them die, but then you get a couple that actually live. But this is one that I have just let grown in a big container to really thicken up. Let it grow, don't prune it. I really want to see how big I can get these trees. And mind you, this one's much bigger than the one we have over there, and it actually came from that tree. It's amazing. I recommend the Brazilian rain tree. If you can find one, all you need is one, and you'll make 100. Let's get back to the bench. All right, we're ready to prune. What you need to have is make sure to get your soil ready, because we're going to cut these and just shove them into soil right away. Not going to give them any chance there to dry up. I think it'll give us a better success rate. So I'm just going to bring this down a bit. All these longer shoots got to go. And once we get to that point, we're going to air layer. And I think I'm going to keep a lot of this growth up here. So we'll see how it goes. But first, let's take care of the stuff on this side of the tree, the stuff we're going to air layer. So This tree is prone to die back like crazy. It just does. Because of the dieback, you may want to try to cut it a little closer to that top of the bottom of that top node, because you will get plenty of dieback, and it's very possible you cut it too close to that node, the bottom node. It's just going to die back further down. So, and you can see that in some of these branches here that have died. You know, these were all cut back and perhaps too close, and it just dies back even more. And as this grows, this starts losing its energy, stops losing its energy, and eventually it's just going to wither away and it's going to die. So let's take care of that branch right there. We'll take care of any of the other ones that have died off as well. Okay, we're just about through with the initial pruning of the stock that we're going to use for the air layer. Just shove them in there. That's it. Some of these are going to die. It happens. Some of them are going to die. It happens. But you'll get one or two that don't. And you've got plenty to go with here. And if you really wanted to, you could probably meticulously cut these in sections and get them in soil. I don't know if that works out well because of the dieback. But these long branches, you'll always get a few of them that will work. So we're going to put those away for now. And now we have the tree. Now, if we can imagine what this air layer is going to look like, we get it right about, we air layer it about here, that should be tall enough. Look at that. We can make a nice, ouch. Ouch. Careful for the thorns, y'all. But if you just imagine, that would be a nice looking bonsai. So I want to try to get this as close down as I can, and we'll make sure that we're going to do the ring air layer method. Super simple. Anyone can do it. I have a very high success rate with it, and it definitely works with this tree. And in about 2 to 3 months, that's going to have plenty of roots to go ahead and separate from this parent tree, and we have a whole new bonsai to work with. It's actually magic. So let's get started with the magical process now. All right, we've done this before on the show. It's super simple. Take a razor blade, push it down. You want to go all the way down to the wood, and then you just score a line, score another line about 1/2 inch to 1 inch atop of that, and completely separate these first 2 layers of bark. But essentially all I'm doing is pushing down, and I want you to see this here. I'm taking this, I'm just pushing in a little bit, and then I score it. I just make a little line across. Look at that. And I find the next little spot, push it down, and rock it across. Now, this may be a little trickier, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that line a bit. And then we're going to finally connect it right here. Very good. So we've got one line. Let's go ahead and we'll go right about here. Yeah, we'll go right about here. Boom. Take it. And if you're brave enough, you can just go ahead and score it across. Going a little too high, so we're going to rock down that angle a little bit and meet it up. Boom. Now we have our 2 score lines. This is the simple part here. We're going to go in. We're going to get an access point. We're going to start peeling away this bark. Get that little corner, pull it up. Get that little corner, pull it up. There you go. And if you've done this right, and it's deep enough in all sides, you may be able to get this off in one foul swoop. I don't think that I've got it complete yet, but let's see here. My line's separating. I'm at a weird angle myself, so make sure you're using a fresh blade when you do this work. Fresh blade. There we go. See, I'm starting to peel that off here. And as you can see, we've got our outer bark here, the inner bark, which is that green stuff, and then we have our cambium layer. We're actually going past that layer and going down to the live sapwood. And this is the wood that we have that's underneath the cambium layer. And we're basically separating the skin off of this tree so that it completely separates this part of the tree from the rootstock. And what's going to happen, all the carbohydrates that it takes from the top, it's going to bring it down. It's thinking it's taking it and putting it down into roots, but eventually it's going to form its own roots, and then it's going to come out, and it's going to come out right over here at this line. And so this ring is essentially our barrier to separate these 2 parts of this tree now, because at this point, if I was to stop right now, there's plenty. Think of it as a vein. Think of its bark as a vein, and it's taking all of it, and it's live. And if you give it any sort, if I was to strip everything out but leave one little strip, it would still be able to feed itself, and eventually it would close back up. So we need to completely remove. The layer of bark there. If you're having trouble just like peeling it off, sometimes it's not as easy to just peel off. A lot of times I can just peel it off, but you just take your fresh hobby blade, scrape it, scrape it. Remember, this part of the wood is not, I mean, you could probably strip this down a whole lot because there's no energy from the middle of this tree that's giving it to the top of the tree. So you could make this as thin as you want, I'd imagine. I wouldn't recommend it. You just need to go as far down as you need. See, I went a little too deep on that cut there. But the idea is to make sure that there's no bridge between the bottom stalk and the top stalk of the tree. If there's any sort of bridge, it will close up and it'll heal. All that green, we want to get it down to the fresh sapwood there. Yeah, I want to actually go a little deeper here. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. So here's that sapwood, and we still have some cambium layer there. Scrape it away. Completely scrape it away. And if you can, make it just bone, like bone dry almost looking. You don't want any of that green or that off-white stuff. You want it to be that wood color. And as you can see right here, we've got a nice bridge that can still occur. We gotta go ahead and cut that off there. There we go. Okay, so there's the layer. All right, the next step is completely optional, but I've never done it without it, and I feel I shouldn't change it if it's working. But we've got our rooting hormone in the powder form, and we want to get it right in the top, in this area where we know that roots are going to grow. And just we want to try to get that hormone right inside of there. And that's all there is to it. I mean, that's that simple. Plenty of root hormone to go there. All right, next, get some moss. I have some sphagnum moss here. It's been soaking. Now you don't want it to be sopping wet, but you also don't want it to be too dry. So nice little medium. Make it as long as you need to cover up that ring, and we're going to basically come around and just wrap it around. So I'm going to come in here. Maybe I come in from this side so that I don't have to work around that branch too hard. So I'll bring it in here, bring it down, and I just surround that whole thing. It's that simple. Now you can keep this in place for just a moment if you get a nice little squeeze, and that gives you enough time to go grab your plastic wrap that you had waiting for you right here. And as you can see, you could probably run to the kitchen right now and grab it if you forgot to grab it. And we need to make this a humid environment, so we're going to wrap it in not aluminum foil, but plastic wrap. Create a greenhouse effect inside of that air layer area. I've seen this done with basically someone cutting open a regular garden pot with some soil. And actually that's a pretty cool method I've seen, because then you can actually water it if you need to. This is a pretty difficult method for watering, but I find if you just leave a little bit open at the top here, you'll be able to do it just fine. You'll be able to water just fine. All right, so grab a little piece of wire, and we're just going to close off that area. Okay, and we're going to leave a little bit of this top up and out like this. We'll just kind of lightly tuck it. That way we can come back and water it if we feel it's getting too dry. All right, next you need your aluminum foil. You know it's aluminum foil because it makes that aluminum foil sound. And this is just to keep it from drying out too much. I mean, the whole point of this is to make sure it does not dry out and acting like a cutting, you know? I mean, basically you just cut this and severed it off. And if you keep it moist, like dropping it in water, I don't think it's gonna grow. You need a nice mixture of humidity and heat and water. You don't want too much of that. So, as you can see there, that air layer is complete. 2 to 3 months, you're gonna have roots growing out of this thing. You can take it from the parent plant, plop it in its own soil, and it's going to create a bonsai like this. So this is an air layer off that same exact tree. And I think it's a good time to give it a pruning just like we saw before. And I don't know if it's ready to come out of this air pot just yet. So I think we're just gonna go ahead and prune it for now, and we'll move on from there. Let's do it. Gotta have your place to put your cuttings. And if you don't want cuttings, I'd say still do them anyways, and that way you can give them to your friends. I've given this tree away to so many of my friends already. I know Baldoff's got one, and he's doing well with it right now. Now, I'm using that same technique of the dieback here. And I'll show you this one more time here. We've got, let's say I want to prune this back here, and you want to go down to the first, the first or second or third node here. We have growth on this third node. You can see it's popping up. So I want to keep that. What you want to do is normally they tell you cut in the middle and account for dieback, but this dies back too hard. So we're going to go ahead and cut it right. We're going to go higher than they normally say and go right under that node. And that way, when it dies back, it's not going to die back too hard, hopefully, and not let that grow out. Recommend that y'all pick up some vinyl tubing for this particular solution here. Get a little bit of that tubing. That way you don't scar up your tree too hard. It will eventually if you don't watch it, but at least with this you don't have that wire just eating at that branch. All right, so let's keep moving here. We're creating a nice structure for this bonsai in the future. I can already see its bones are looking great. I'm not too worried about the branches right now because we can build those. We can thread those in if we want, but you can't make a good trunk by threading anything. And you see it's still pretty 2D. Hopefully with these kind of things we do, we can start bringing out these branches, let them fall down, and they'll start creating some 3D effects for us, bringing this from 2D into a more 3D bonsai. But right now, that's where we're at with this one. Oh, you may have noticed that I've got wood chips in my bonsai soil. Now, I live in Texas, the central Texas, where it's very hot. And right now it's springtime, and we're already feeling like it's summertime here, very hot. And my experience with these types of trees in general, with bonsai, is that it's very hard to keep them moist, or at least keep them from drying out too quickly. So, some things that I've tried differently in the garden this year is I've gotten this pine bedding, soft pine bedding, and I think it's working great. I used it for my hackberry, and it has produced so much more leafage. Now this is only about a month from when we did the main pruning of it, where we got rid of a bunch of the unsightly branches, and then since then I put that mulch there, and it is thriving. It is not drying out very quickly. It's staying appropriately moist for what it needs, getting its water. Not only that, I've also chose to start going with Osmocote fertilizer for everything. This is recommended to me by Brandon Baldoff, and I haven't looked back since. It's not offensive in the pot. Sometimes you have tea bags or these like weird looking poopy chunks on top of your soil. It just looks gross. This is I think a better alternative. It doesn't stink at all. And you know, they're little pellets, they're little balls, so you're not going to, it's going to semi blend in with your Akadama. I mean, look at that, it's the same color as Akadama. Here's Osmocote and Akadama side by side. Mixing them up together, I mean, that fertilizer works for 6 months, and it just turns into a little husk that eventually will deteriorate away. Actually, I think they're made of resin, so they won't necessarily deteriorate away, but they easily wash away on your next repotting. I find it to be incredible. It has given me such amazing growth this season alone. More growth than I've seen in the past few years that I've been doing bonsai. So I definitely owe a lot to Brandon Baldoff and his recommendations, and anytime he has recommendations, I take them. So I recommend Osmocote, not a sponsor. Okay, so we finished up for today. I've got this air layer ready to go. I'm gonna let this grow and let this thicken up a bit. And then once we're ready, we'll decide where we wanna cut it, decide if we wanna even keep this in the first place. But either way, I think this part of the bonsai, or this part of the air layer is gonna look amazing once we actually have it in its own roots. So, thank you guys for watching. If you like our stuff, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. We'll see you guys next time. In the meantime, be cool, stay hip, get yourself a hobby. Bye. You're in the greenhouse with me right now, and as you can see, let me scratch my foot here first. I think I'm getting bit by the skaters. All right, get your aluminum foil. You know it's aluminum foil because that makes that a blah, 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 blah. The green stuff's our inner bark, and then we have the white cambium layer. Cambium layer. I think that's it. Cambium.